please.
Hi everybody, I have to now live up to that intro. Okay, good, my slides are working. I should warn everybody, I'm from New York, which means I speak faster. I'm speaking slow now. Because I'm aware I'm trying not to speak too fast. So I'm from New York, so my speed will increase. I've had 3 shots of espresso and I just had a tea. So by the end, I expect character wants you to say a specific thing. If it wants a specific item, it's me who decided that. If you go to the end of the hallway and you go right and there's monsters, and you go left and there's treasure. I know my directions. Wait, I was doing that for you. If you go right and there's a treasure, and left and there's a monster, I'm the one who made those decisions. So I draw these levels out, and then the programmers come in, and this is what they do. They kind of get the scaffolding together and they build the house. And then the artists come in and they make the house pretty. So, and while that's what happened in this house. So this is me, right there, obviously. So when I was 5, I don't even understand why, I became obsessed with games. And I would go to yard sales, and in the States we had Rollmaster. So Rollmaster had a rule for encumbrance. And just to explain encumbrance, it means if in the same scenario where the monster's over here and the treasure's here, I've got all the treasure, but it's a lot of treasure, right? So I'm walking like this, trying to carry it. It means I'm encumbered. I can't walk as fast. So all the things I'm doing in the game are bugging me. So I didn't like that, so I changed the rules for encumbrance. Now this affected other things, and then I basically needed to rewrite the entire book, which I did, and I'm sure it was absolutely terrible, and I wished I still had it. But I did that when I was 15. And it was that same year that I had my first job interview for the game industry. And some of you who are astute are wondering, then why do you have a picture of bathrooms up there? Good question, because that's where my job interview was. It really was. So bring your minds to one of the gutter. It was an interview. So what happened is I was standing in the bathroom. I grew up in northern New York where there's 8 feet of snow, really. Wizardry? No. Have you ever played D&D? Yes, I have. And that was my job interview. Also working on games. And at that time, I never really saw myself, believe it or not, as a woman in a man's world. That this world is allegedly filled with a ton of men, well, a tech world rather. And I think the reason that I didn't feel this way is because the company that I worked for was mostly women, right? So, well, not mostly, but it was. So there's this guy shouldn't be in the picture, but the company was half women. And so as I went through, so I stayed with this company for 21 years, that's me there in the back, and you can see that the numbers shrunk, and we're getting much more men into the company. And although the demographics of my work environment changed from half to just me in much larger teams, still it felt very normal to me to be around a ton of guys. And in fact, years later I got a job at a company called Slide. This is around 2010. I got a job at a company called Slide, and Slide actually was majority women, and I felt bizarrely uncomfortable because I just wasn't used to it. And I just, in some ways, I feel, having gotten into the industry in 1981, I feel like so much has changed. I mean, I've lived through the rise of arcades, and now it's all about VR, but still, many things have stayed the same. And this brings me back to women in tech and why diversity matters. In the workplace, and I'll give you, the only workplace I've ever known is my workplace. In fact, a very bizarre statistic that I found out, apparently through nothing impressive that I did. I failed to die, and I also failed to change. I'm the longest continuously serving female game developer in the world, which I think, but that's not like I just didn't die, right? So as long as I stay alive, I've got it, but I think that's an interesting stat. So anyway, why diversity matters. So I can only speak to my industry because it's the only thing I've been a part of. And if we're going to talk about women in games, we really need to talk about female avatars. I'm trying to create a character who is, say, black. My only choice for hair is cornrows or an afro. Or if I want to be something other than a white guy, I can be this sort of shade of brown, which represents apparently everybody who's not white. But nothing says you don't belong like that, right? So, and if we want to be a woman in a games world, it's little wonder that we have a shortage of strong female leads because we have a shortage of strong female developers. So this is a game called ICO. I first want to say ICO is an absolutely amazing game. But here's part of what you do in ICO. This guy basically drags her by going to go rescue Princess Peach. But what if she were a self-rescuing princess, right? Or what if she needs, like, I don't, hang on, I'll get myself out of this. Interestingly enough, I Googled game protagonist. This is the first half of the image you get. Not a lot of diversity there. We can sort of see it's a white guy who lost his razor. This is the second half of the image that you get, first image. As far as women go, when it comes to female game characters, images in women like these are few and far between. But that doesn't mean as women we want heroes, because we do. We all want to play a hero in a game. And games are about wish fulfillment. Nobody wants to play, like, what do you want to do? I want to play filing taxes, the game. Like, nobody wants to do that, right? Like, you want to do something really cool. And so when we talk about heroes, this is in general how heroes are created, whether it's in TV or movies. So male and female avatars will often exhibit exaggerated physical signals of youth, strength, and fertility. So here's what they look like in hero form, right? We have large shoulders, slim waist, slim hips, large arms, long thick hair. Female, large breasts, usually impossibly high in the shadow. Slim waist, round bottoms, and long thick hair. Here's an interesting thing. With women, they all show signs of sexual receptivity. Almost always, right? So, and what does that mean? So just, shock warning coming up here. These are screenshots from actual games. I don't know about you guys, but if somebody's about to break into your house, I throw on my, I don't know what she's planning to kill people with, but anyway. So that's an actual example, right? So we see, here's the additional things we see with female avatars. If they have red full lips, heavy lids, heavy breathing shown by an open mouth, and they will have erect nipples. Probably not what you were planning to hear in women's teeth. Who's regretting the impregnation? Anyway, so the interesting thing though is between men and women, these signals are absolutely the same. Absolutely the same. But we will only see it in women in games. Only. So take a look at this. I know. Take a look at this very interesting creature. And I mean, as far as just to cut, maybe those are water balloons, right? Maybe they are. But that looks like painful, right? And so not only do we dress women in ridiculously provocative ways, we also demonstrate this sexual arousal. These are some more characters from video games. I mean, come on. Like, what game is that, right? I mean, they're just absolutely ridiculous. So here's a couple male protagonists. Very popular male protagonists from video games. Notice, not at all like that. Now imagine if our male protagonists show the same things that female protagonists show. Here are our male game protagonists. Can you imagine? Like, if I released a game with those as the characters, I would have maybe people in this room would buy it. So with all that said, it is actually getting much better. This is Faith from Mirror's Edge, and she's a great character in games. And here's some others. Ellie from Last of Us. Gone Home was if you haven't played Gone Home, I would recommend it. It's a pretty short game. It's 2.5 hours, so I won't spoil it. But Gone Home, you can definitely tell the effects of diversity are present. And so game protagonists are changing more and more. So now with female gamers, in some sense, the lack of strong female characters is rooted in the belief in who plays games. And I think back to this time with my daughter, when she was pretty young at the time, my middle daughter was pretty young, I think she was about 7, and a classmate, when she said, I absolutely love games, and a classmate said to her, like, girls don't play games. And so she said, my mommy makes them. And she didn't know that she was being this cool when she said that. She also ruined a 17-year-old boy's life. I don't know how to slide for this, but you can visualize this kid's life being ruined. It was a 2 out of 3 Super Smash Brothers tournament, and she won. She was 7, she had a little cute pink hair. And he was a 17-year-old kid who lost in front of his friends. Poor guy. I'm sure he's still in therapy. Anyway, sometimes I do find that stereotypes, this was at a store in the States before we left, stereotypes are really deeply rooted in our entertainment, and they are just reinforcing the things that we think girls should or should not do. These are household cleaning supplies, cleaning appliance things that my daughter couldn't figure out, why would these be toys? And why are they in the girls' aisle? And I just told average gamer is? Any guess? 43-year-old woman. We play more games than anybody. We are the core gamers. So next time somebody says you are not the core gaming audience, oh, you absolutely are. 43-year-old women play more games, and this is the average. Play more games. Women spend more money on games. It's amazing. We own this industry now. And so this whole notion of women don't play games, therefore we make games for our audience, just means that basically we're ensuring that women don't play games because we're not making games for them, allegedly. And I want to just take this, so this was a really interesting thing, and I watched this project throughout its whole development because I wanted to get it for my kid. I did get it for my kid. But it was very heavily marketed at boys and girls. Very, they all the way through, it's going to be teaching boys and girls procedural logic and how to play. But notice who made it to the cover. Only a boy. So nothing says this isn't for you, like not showing you on the door, so to speak. There's another game recently that came out called Assassin's Creed Unity. You could not play a female character. And in a nutshell, they said women were too expensive to animate and difficult to animate. This went over incredibly well. Women just, because what's the difference, right? So it was apparently, and now mind you, I've shown you shots earlier of other women. Clearly the game industry has mastered, there's actually a term for it, it's called jiggle physics, and I'm not making it up. So this is just an absolutely ridiculous thing. And again, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Recently, there was a Hearthstone tournament in which they said that the women were not allowed to play. I love Hearthstone, so needless to say, I was very curious what they were even thinking about it. And Blizzard ended up, the company that makes Hearthstone, ended up getting pretty upset with that and actually made them change it. So now getting to, what if the player is female? In 2007, an amazing thing happened, and that's when Facebook hits, right, among other things. And Facebook and also smartphones. And so women really started to get into games, and where I noticed it was when my niece, who just doesn't care about games at all, asked me if I would add her on Farmville. And I was absolutely shocked, because normally my family gatherings have been like this since I was 15 years old, right? Like people just, what do you do again? Isn't Dungeons and Dragons that Satanist game? Kill the children, or something like that, right? It was an alien concept, but Farmville changed everything. And for the first time in my career, people were actually calling me saying, hey, you're a female game designer, we would like to hire you to consult. And I, really? Because normally that felt like this odd thing that I had. And other casual games also showed that not only do women like games, they spent an absolute ton of money. This brings me to that point that I mentioned earlier about gender-inclusive game design. So we're starting to see people being able to choose an avatar that was both male and female. One wasn't, here I've got animals, right? Not a smart slide choice. But the characters were male and female, and neither one was like, oh, look at, I can either be like the big buff warrior guy who's actually fully clothed, or I could run into a dungeon in my chainmail bikini. But that wasn't happening. Also, types of play that women actually like, so building things like sim games, those were very popular. Games were integrating much deeper stories and also allowing for some kind of role play. They were also allowing for the first time a really social play, easy social play that was asynchronous. So I'll play when I want, you can show up 10 hours later and you can play your turn, and we'll go back and forth like that. And so the market grew literally by millions and millions of players, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of players started to play around that time. And so if the industry has been around for this long, why did it take until 2007 for this big change to happen? And I sort of feel it's because the game industry is a reflection of who's making games, right? So if you're making games for yourself and you never see anything outside of yourself, you're going to make games that are very reflective of you. Now, there have been a few blips on this. There was the Nancy Drew series, unbelievably successful. Barbie fashion designer, also unbelievably successful. Interestingly enough, every blip that proved that women or girls do play games, the teams were led by women every single time without fail. I don't think this is a coincidence. And so this brings me to development teams, which I think is our last great hurdle. So when I got into the industry in '81, there were 5 women, literally, and I knew every single one of them, 5 female developers, and I knew every one of us. And now I will go to conferences and I will not know everybody. It was, like, to me, the female CTOs, I was like, wow, rock star. These female CTOs are sort of, they should have little shells too. I mean, seriously, that's what I was saying is not for the stage, but that's crazy. We're still, even though I'm surrounded by women in technology now, we're still an overwhelming minority. But diverse teams matter. For instance, I don't think this ever would have happened on my team, right? And also, I'll just give you an example from my own experience with my husband, who's also a game designer. In this particular game we were working on in Ravenwood Fair, basically when you leave, it was on Facebook, so when you left the game, what would happen is eventually scary things are going to come out of the forest and scare characters. And so you'd come back and they'd be like, oh my God, and they'd be all scared of the little characters, and I hated doing that. And so I would say to my husband, what I really wanted, well, what I would say is, I want to keep them safe. And when I go away, I want to know that they're safe. And so he, being a very astute programmer, thinking very binary, so he said, well, Ronnie, you know, nothing actually happens when you're not playing. This isn't an alternate reality happening here. And so I said, yes, I'm aware of that, but still, for some reason, I didn't feel like I couldn't button it up, right? For some reason, it just didn't feel right. He could not at all understand why that bugged me. But at some point in time, he said, okay, I'm in learning mode. This is his exact quote, I'm in learning mode. You explain to me what you need to feel good with this game. And so what he ended up doing was creating this, so one of these little guys here, a protector. And what the protector does is that if you have a protector and it's charged, when a character ends up getting scared, they can't be scared because the protector's there to watch them while you're away, while the game's not even running. And he also added some other thing to the game, which is if somebody did somehow get scared when you touched them, like when you went up and you clicked on it, the character would say, that's okay, right? And people loved that feature, right? So people got all the credit for it, but people loved it. So ultimately, if diversity is critical, and I took out another example, which was even more, which was just absolutely crazy. It was a writer who I really respect, wrote a story in a game for us. In the story, there was only one female character. She'd given up everything she'd given up her entire career for her son, who was had out of wedlock, and she basically lived her life to try to get this man back. Needless to say, that story was canned. So how do we improve diversity? Well, first of all, I think we need, especially in the game industry, to change our marketing. So this is an actual picture from a trade show that I went to. This is a picture from the other side. You know what? It's not to say, I will respect, I don't have one of those. Mine is like that. I respect those women. I'm sure that's taken an awful lot of work, but it's a workplace, man. I don't want to see that every day when I go to work. It's just, it doesn't feel right. I also think we need to change our perception. So I hear this all the time. And I've heard this regularly too, which is kind of ridiculous considering coding was invented by a woman, Ada Lovelace. There's a recent study done by the Science Foundation in Ireland, Science Foundation Ireland, and they tried to find out the number one influencer of girls in their career choice was. Do you know what it was? Any guess? It was their mother. Their mother. So if their mother said you are not good at code, they said, okay, I guess that's it then. And if we can change the perception that absolutely, yes, women are good at code. In fact, we were just talking about this. There was a fascinating research study done on GitHub. And what they did is they got a lot, they took down a ton of code, they analyzed that code, and they consistently found that women wrote better code than men. And while I don't find that this is necessarily a comparison, we're not, well, I'm phenomenally competitive, I'm a gamer, what do you expect? I'm going to find out, I'm better than you are, haha, right? That's just the way I'm wired. But while it's not a competition, it's also necessary to make sure that these myths don't prevail. In fact, the truth is girls are just as good at math and just as good at science as boys are, unless they're told that they're not, in which case they will often believe it. I think in IT, in tech, and especially in games, we need to change the culture. So this has been an unbelievably bad year for women in games. There have literally been death threats if you are a game developer. There has been what's known as swatting. So this is, say, calling up the police and saying there's a hostage situation, somebody won't let somebody go, and a SWAT team arrives at their house. And that's very terrifying. People have died because they come out going, what the hell's going on? And then people get shot. So there has been lots of personal information leaked online, and this is really just stuff that you know about. The things that I've heard behind the scenes are absolutely terrifying. I have not been immune from this. There were many times when I would log into Twitter and just see people saying all forms of garbage about me. This was probably one of the most exciting ones. This guy can't spell, right? But basically, wondering
You know, there was a time like when it was just 5 women in the game industry, and I did feel like a pioneer. There's a lot of them. I can't even imagine if somebody had said to me that at some point, 30 years from when I started coding, I would be in a room full of women interested in tech. Like, I can't even fathom that. It just feels like we've come so far. And even now, like when I get that garbage on the internet, which fortunately is dying down, but when I get that, I don't even think about it. So, you know what? Fine, say what you want to me, because I'm not doing that for you. I'm doing it for this. So this was the Mother's Day present that, I'm not going to make excuses for that tearing up. This is a Mother's Day book that my daughter gave me. And she said that her goal, you know, one of her big dreams is to make a game with me. And so for me, like, that crystallized it, man. Like, I have got to do, like, when I got my Lifetime Achievement Award, I called my family up on the stage, because you can't do it without them, right? I mean, if they weren't supporting me doing the crazy things that I do, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So I called them up on stage, and she said she knew when she was on stage and she looked back, that she was coming back there. And she was going to do everything she could to learn how to code. So for me, like, I need to do whatever I can do to make this a great industry for her. And not just for my daughter, because that would be phenomenally selfish, but like for all our daughters, right? And that rising tide raises all ships. It's not just all our daughters, it's all of our sons, it's everybody who's interested in this. And, you know, as well for us, because making games in tech is amazing. We live in such a profound time where we can literally change the world by the smallest code that happens, or the smallest design that happens at night by our computer when we don't even think we can. Thank you.